History on the Go. Welcome to anyone that's new to my channel. This is a history channel, plus I talk about current affairs, anything of interest that I have of interest concerning people. And today I want to talk about dividing lines. Is all of humanity throughout history being pushed to be on certain lines, be across certain lines, to be on certain sides, to be part of a group, that type of thing? Is this something that's current and is something that's always happened in history? Yeah, dividing lines. It's about, are we being pushed to be on a side, to be on some side, wherever side it is? Are we being pushed to do that? And who's pushing us? Society pushes us to be on certain sides. But society, we are society. So it's, at the end of the day, everything begins with us, begins with you, begins with me. I mean, history itself teaches us that humans, people, have been divided across many different lines. And because of this, it causes a lot of problems. And we all know this. I mean, in order for us to be on one side of something, what is the actual driving force behind that? Why do we have to choose a side? Sometimes we are born into a side, whatever side it is. But I think one of the driving forces that's psychological to humanity is that for us to feel good about ourselves, sometimes we have to look at others as being bad, or look at others as being different, as being the other. And that can be a deep, central thing to all of humanity. So in order for us to be good, somebody has to be bad. In order for us to be right, somebody has to be wrong. In order for us to be in the light, somebody has to be in the darkness. Doesn't matter who you are, this is central, I believe, to all humanity. And it's only those people that are aware of that dynamics within yourselves that you can actually navigate and say, okay, I don't need to follow this central theme running inside my being. One thing I can notice from just being on social media, or just listening to the news, or just living and being in the company of people, and being in the company of work colleagues and of friends and family, just from those experiences and those observations, just from being in those situations and observing those types of things, I can tell that as time goes on, people are being pushed into major sides. It's almost like what somebody would say polarization. So there's a polarization where you're getting less and less of the middle ground. And anybody who's off the middle ground, people tend not to listen to. They either tend to listen to those who are far to one side or far to the other side. And those are the people that kind of lead in the world in a way. So you have those who is politically on the left and those who is politically on the right. And both the people on the left believe they are right and the people on the right believe they are right. It's funny how the people on the right is called the right. I mean, the fact that they call the right is almost like, I don't know how that even came about, but it's almost like, well, we're on the right. They're saying they're on the right because they're right. So because of this central theme of if I'm right, you have to be wrong, then you have different lines drawn on a religious basis. And so we have Muslims against Christians and Christians against Muslims. And we know how long that's been going on, for a very long time, centuries upon centuries upon centuries. We also have, right at this moment, we have Jews against Muslims, or Israel against Palestine. It may not necessarily be clearly as just Jews, because Israel is a nation, and within that nation there are Jews. And I know there are Jews of different opinions, but nevertheless, what it boils down to is Judaism against Islam, or Islam against Judaism. But that's not what is talked about. What is talked about is, this is my land and this is your land. This is where my border is. So what I'm talking about here is dividing lines, and the central theme going through humanity is that one has to be right in order for one to be wrong, or vice versa. It's quite impossible for a lot of us to think that two people can be right. That's almost like, can we actually think like that? So we don't only have religious division, we know that, everybody talks about that, but we also have, within nations, we have locations that are divided amongst each other. So we have, generally in a lot of countries, you find that the north is against the south, or the south is against the north. Here in England, everything favours the south. The news, everything, the finance, everything favours the south. And then you have the north, who's generally poorer, generally have less jobs and all types of things. So we have that division, north versus south. Similar, for a little bit I know about Italy, you've got the northern Italians and the southern Italians. And there's all different reasoning why the northern Italians sometimes look down on the southern Italians. I'm not too sure whether the southern Italians look down on the northern Italians. But you have these lines. What I'm talking about here is dividing lines between humanity, between people. Within nations, some nations, you still have clans. In places like, I think, Yemen and probably Libya and different countries, clan-based divisions. I belong to this clan, you belong to that clan. My name is this name, your name is that name. And so we have these dividing lines. We still have, believe it or not, in many countries, some continents, like Africa, tribal lines. Even right now, I think in Libya, once Gaddafi was taken out of the way, then things went back to tribal lines. And that's why you have, after he was killed, so much different ruling groups who were trying to take control. Because that's what happens when you take away a leader from a nation. Whether that leader be a dictator, whatever form of leader that leader is, once you take away that unifying force that was pulling things together, whether that pulling together was by force, by choice, whatever way it was, once that thing has been taken away, or that person, then things just fall apart. We see in history this has happened over and over again. This happened in Africa, in most of the nations that was ruled by Europe, whether it be France, England, Portugal, Germany. Once those nations was either kicked out, pushed out, or left by choice, once they're left, then all of the divisions that was there before they came, and they was able to control all those divisions because they took control of a certain region that included all of those different peoples, groups, tribes, clans, whatever. Once that force that was pulling them together like a magnet was taken away, then somebody had to fight for supremacy. This happens every time. Whether it's a nation, the leader of a nation, or the colonizing force of a region pulls away, then this is what happens. So that's because as humans we are divided. We are divided along different lines, even on the basis of continents. This is on a bigger scale. We have Africa, we have Europe, we have Asia. Even on that big scale, and the Americas, even on that big scale, we have lines, we have continental divisions, continents who are striving to survive. Europe has industrialized its nations, but that industry, all of those industries, depends on resources, and those resources, a lot of the times, comes from Africa. And so because of that economical kind of imbalance, there causes all sorts of political or economical problems, and because one continent wants to serve its own interest and its own people and its own minority of like elites and those who have power, at the expense of another continent. So we're talking about divisions. Me personally, the reason I'm talking about this is because I've always felt that I'm a person who would love to see unity in humanity. I mean, I love to see unity within my own background of people, black people as a whole, Africa, the Caribbean. There needs to be a certain amount of unity for that doesn't only benefit the people, but it benefits the world. Any nation or any peoples that they're under a political leadership or they're under a government, if those people are united, it's good for not only the people, but for the world. But obviously there's different forms of unity. Some people unite for evil, or some people can unite for destruction. We know that forces have come together not to cause some kind of better world, but they've come together to take control of certain regions of the world. And so that form of coming together, it's not really something that is positive. But the coming together I'm talking about of people, especially of those developing countries, them coming together in a way will help the individuals within those companies, the masses. And when the masses are in a better position, that brings the world into a better position. Because when you think of it, a lot of these so-called developing countries, the reason why they run into the so-called richer countries is because of lack of certain things in their country. But if those countries are given the space and sometimes the help in certain things to develop in a certain way for the betterment of the masses, then that is better for the whole world. So divisions can cause problems, but unity can benefit everybody. This video, I'm going to be extending it and making it a bit. I'm going to add another part to it because I've said a lot more than I thought I was going to be saying on this. But to sum it all up, humanity needs to think about the dividing lines that divides them. And I've just touched some of those dividing lines. I've touched some of the basic ones, but even at the smaller level, from the fact that you allow division, or you allow or you exploit division in your own self, within your own family, or within your own community, or within your own nation, from the time you exploit those and use them for the wrong things, then you don't only affect yourself, but you affect others. The fact that we have parties within countries, like we have the Labour, the Conservative, the Liberal Democrats, that in itself is division. I know you need to have different points of views, but if parties can be exploited in a way to create a lot more division in this world, in your own nation. So instead of bettering the people, the parties sometimes is just saying things to better themselves. And that is a deep thing that I've just said. They say things to better themselves because party means divided. Instead of them supporting another party when the party's in power, what they do, they speak out against everything that party is doing. So they won't say, oh, Conservatives, that was good what you just did there. Or Labour, that was good what you just did there. Democrats, that thing that you just did there was really good. No, rather than do that, they would rather speak out against even the things that are good. And so this was just my little talk on division, on lines that I draw, and it starts with you. It starts with you. At the end of the day, it starts with you. That's how I see things. You know, some people say, or someone said, whatever change that you want in this world, you have to start that change. You can't be just talking about those so-called elites with all the money and saying, why are they not doing anything? Why don't they help the poor? While you're walking past a homeless person and you've got money in your wallet, and you might be going down the road just to buy yourself something that could be destructive to your own self. But you're not thinking to yourself, well, I can spare some money for that person. You would rather say the rich and the governments, they're the ones that should be sorting out this problem. It starts with us, man. It starts with us, because if you're at the so-called bottom and you do reach to the top, when I say the top politically, I'm talking about here. If you have certain attitudes when you was at the bottom, those attitudes will be taken with you to the top. So if you were selfish and self-serving when you was at the bottom, then there's no reason why you're not going to be like that when you reach the top. So don't always blame the top, even though they're responsible for certain things and positions that they're in. Remember, those at the bottom have their responsibility also. History on the go. I hope that you gain something from this talk. I'm only talking about what interests me. I'm talking about it's my point of view based on just experience, based on being able to observe certain books or read certain books, been able to listen to other people over the years, and I've gathered my point of view on certain things based on all those things, not just from speaking anything coming to my head, but just basing those the conclusions or kind of things to talk about on what I've observed over the years. So if you're interested in some of the things I talk about, then you can subscribe to my channel.